Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection. Yes, and of course, joining me as always from Lancashire, Simon Bray from Perth, Scotland, Mr. Steven Reid. Gentlemen, welcome back to Ranking the Songs on Classic Albums here on the UK Connection. We're going to be taking a trip to paradise by a certain light, right? Today. Meat Loaf, Paradise by the Dashboard Light on the album called Bat Out of Hell, right? So that is our album for today. We've talked about Meat Loaf a little bit on this channel before, right? The Loaf, we've covered the Loaf. Unfortunately,
we killed the Loaf.
Yes, we lost him this year, which kind of sucks. But this album will live on forever, I think. So why not try and rank the songs? I mean, I've listened to this album so many times. You know how long it took me to put my list together, gentlemen? Like 2 minutes. That's how well I know this album. Like, I know exactly which ones I like and where they sit and which ones I'd rather hear and all that kind of stuff. So this was, but I always love talking about Bat Out of Hell. But before we do that, we have one bit of business to take care of. Simon's going to tell us what that's all about first.
Oh, is it beer?
Yes, it's beer.
Oh my God, that's good. I'm instituting a new beer-based fun game. You remember a very long time ago when Stephen introduced, what were they called last week, Stephen? Your beer from last week?
The beer that played with Diamond Head, remember?
The beer that played with Diamond Head.
Called Diamond Degrees.
Head, yeah. So my beer is from Denmark. It's a hazy IPA and it's called Orbital Movement. And Orbital Movement is the new album from members of Pink Floyd. Yes.
I was sure it was the Ozric Tentacles.
Very much so. Oh, it's definitely prog-tastic. That's why I struggle to come up with something, because I never get into the prog scene, as you know. But I feel like Orbital Movement sound like they should be progging it up. Don't you? And unusually for me, it's a hazy fantasy beer. So yeah, Simon will be big leggy very, very soon indeed. You get that one, Pete?
Yeah.
Excellent. Did they make it across to the USA? Holy shit! Really? Excellent. And a classic album and a classic drink, of course, requires an epic cup.
Look at that. That's the best. That's the best. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. Wonderful. Steven, what do you got? How do you follow that up?
Well, you follow that with an old remedial ale. This sounds like it should be medicinal.
Yeah.
So I have not tried this before. This is from the Moulin Brewery from Pitlochry, which is what we say here. It's just up the road for me. Okay, so in other words, it's not very far away. Okay, and this is 5.2%, and it has all these kind of tastes and notes and all these various things. But yeah, I don't know. It's an anniversary beer for 300 years of the Inn at Moulin and all these various things. Why the old remedial thing, not so sure. It looks, he says, bringing a coaster with him. It looks a bit like this.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Nice dark color.
It's redder here than it looks on the screen. It looks fantastic. Oh, it's quite unusual, actually. I'm not sure about that one.
Unusual good or unusual bad?
Unusual okay.
Okay.
It's smoother than I thought it was going to be, and it does not have the aftertaste that I'd anticipated. But I don't dislike it. It does taste slightly medicinal. Yeah, no, I'm not sure. Not sure.
You can't win them all, man. You can't win them all.
Yeah.
So just like last week, since last week, I have not been to the beverage center yet again because I know I'm lame.
You have 7 days.
I know I'm lame, Simon. So basically everything in my fridge is stuff that I've drank and showed before. So, and this is the last one of this batch. And you might remember we talked about a pumpkin party a couple of weeks ago. That was the pumpkin ale from Long Pine Brewery in Maine, Portland, Maine. This is the one that I was kind of like really wanted it to taste pumpkin-y, and it kind of does, but not too much. 4.2%. It's got lots of clove and nutmeg aroma and cinnamon, and ultimately it's okay. It's okay. Kind of like yours, Steven. It's okay. I would say out of a lot of the pumpkin beers I've had in recent years, that's pretty good because it's got a very pleasing flavor, and it's not too heavy on the spices, right? It's but I wish it tasted more like pumpkin. But I guess does it taste like pumpkin pie? Enough. It's light. It's okay. It's the last one. I won't buy more, but you know, what are you gonna
Have you ever had pumpkin pie, Simon?
Really?
Yeah, that is officially not a thing here.
No.
Oh, okay. It's totally a thing here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's covered in so much US stuff. It's ingrained in the culture. I have never tasted pumpkin pie in my life.
There is just over my laptop. There is an actual pumpkin over there. And when Mrs. Simon says brought home a pumpkin for our 28-year-old to dick around with next week, and I said, "Hey, Mrs. Simon, why have you brought a pumpkin home? We're not American." Why did the temperature dip at that point?
So as I found out recently, when this discussion of like Halloween traditions came up, Davey Gallagher, also from Scotland, was telling us that in your neck of the woods, around this time of year, it's all about turnips, not pumpkins.
Well, yes, it used to be.
Okay.
Now it's pumpkins. We've become de facto Americans now. But yes, when I was young, you used to get a turnip that was like, I'll move things over, I don't knock them all over. It was like, that's how solid it was. And you used to have to try and get a knife and empty that out and scoop out the inside to make the equivalent of your pumpkin, because we didn't have pumpkins here.
Okay.
So it was, as we would say here, it was neeps. Neeps, we would use turnips that we would use. Now in the shops are called sweets.
Is this a Scottish thing? Because I have never, ever heard that.
Well, it must be, because if Davy did it as well, then yes, because when I was young, yes, we carved out a neep, a turnip.
When I was little, Halloween just wasn't a thing over here.
That was about as far as we went. That, and we went what we call up here guising. So that's the dressing up thing. That's what you guys would call trick or treating. We called it guising, because you were meant to take a guy with you, as in your dummy thing that you dressed up to get the money as you went around the doors. I didn't do any of these things when I was young, by the way. And we went guising. Oh,
I've always called that begging.
Yeah, pretty much. But that's what trick or treating
is. What it is. Hi, we look great. We look cute, right? Give us your candy, right? Give us your money. Yeah, exactly.
Introverted Simon's never done that shit. No.
Steven, you will be happy to know that when I was a wee child, I dressed up as Peter Criss from Kiss.
Oh, yes. That's the way to do it. That is the way to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I hope that you beat up some other kids while you did it dressed as Peter Criss, because he was a gangster. So that would be fine.
My brother was Gene Simmons. My brother was always Gene. So my mother bought us whatever we needed to look the part, and we were going for the 1977 look. So if you remember the costumes from that era, right?
Perfect.
Yeah,
that's the right year.
It was cheap. We used a lot of tinfoil and whatever we could to make it look. I would take like belts, because Peter had the silver things going across. Oh yeah, I went all out. It was great. Except the one thing is my hair was so short at the time, kind of like it is now. I had the makeup really good, but then you have this kind of chubby little kid with really short hair trying to look like Peter Criss. Didn't really work, but I don't care. I had a good time.
Should have gone as Gene.
Yeah, my brother picked Gene, and at the time I was like, I could have gone Ace, but I was really a big Peter Criss fan at the time. So
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Yeah. So Bat Out of Hell, 7 songs. We're gonna go 3 at a time, and then we'll reveal our number 1. So, Steven doesn't own a copy.
I have. I thought I had the greatest hits of Meat Loaf in the house. I cannot locate it. I think it's my daughter's. So it probably doesn't reside anymore. I have no loaf. I had to listen to this album a few times this week because there are songs on this that I did not know.
So basically, a Meat Loaf Greatest Hits probably has 6 or 7 songs from this album. There's 7 songs and maybe 3 others. that's probably the greatest hits of Meat Loaf.
No. Thankfully, I had deep cuts from other albums. Hits from other albums.
But I bet you there are versions of greatest hits of Meat Loaf that's
I'm
exactly
sure
what it has.
Yes, yeah. There'll be hits out of hell and all this kind of stuff. Yes, absolutely. But thankfully, I had other songs. I'm revealing way too much. I much prefer other albums in this catalogue.
Okay.
There you go.
Cool. All right, Simon, you're 7, 6, and 5.
7, 6, and 5, or it was up until a minute ago. 7, 6, and 6. Let's see what it is now, shall we? Yeah, my 7 is For Crying Out Loud. The song For Crying Out Loud. I love everything about this record. I haven't listened to it for quite a while. I wasn't more. Oh, actually, we've missed something out, haven't we? We've missed Context.
Oh, we've missed
Context. We need to go back and do Context because I've put the research in. Yes, Stephen.
Go on then.
I've put the research in. Yes, I have. No, Bat Out of Hell originally charted in the UK in 1978. Okay. It charted at its initial peak in 1981. That took a while, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then it peaked again earlier this year.
Yes.
I thought it would be instructed to have a look at the at roughly when it came out and this year.
Oh, did you? I didn't do the this year part. Okay, on you go.
That's gonna be fun. Number 1 in 1978. Meat Loaf recharted at number 25 because it charted initially at 60. It was 20 Golden Grapes by Buddy Holly and the Crickets. The UK was weird in the 70s, wasn't it? It was weird. Abba the album was 2. Andy Williams was 3. Kick Inside, Kate Bush, 4. Kate Bush, super relevant these days. Electric Light Orchestra were 5. It was a compilation album called, and I shit you not, Fonzie's Favourites.
Can I just say that I actually prefer the title that I thought you just gave me there. I thought the compilation was called And I Shit You Not.
Really would be.
I'll tell you what, I'm buying that.
I can only assume that Henry Winkler had, a couple of days to go. Oh, here's some records. I just don't know. Jerry Rafter, City, and Rumours rounded out the top 10. But there's some other great. Dave Clark 5 was in the top 20.
Wow.
Darts. Do you remember Darts, Stephen? And I don't mean the sports. I mean the doo-wop group. That was a real 50s kind of revival that went on for longer than it needed to.
Much longer.
In the 70s, wasn't Manhattan Transfer. I mean, wow. Holy cow! Really? Just what the heck? Just saying. Bat Out of Hell was 25, and there was other interesting stuff. The Muppets. They had a hit album, The Buzzcocks. They're still going. Billy Joel's The Stranger charted for the first time in the UK at the same time as Bat Out of Hell. Never Mind the Bollocks. And the Sex Pistols also, they were there as well. Yeah. 10cc was still going. Mike's Boys. Wow. I know. Just crazy stuff, don't you think? I think we can all agree. Because we're all supposed to think, back in the 70s at this point, 78, everyone's punking it up, aren't they?
Yeah, that's a total fallacy.
Everybody is squarely in the middle of the road.
Yeah, absolutely. It's complete revisionism. Punk was there and it was doing its thing. Yeah. And it has grown with hindsight into this ginormous movement that killed everything in its path. And it didn't. It just existed quite happily alongside it all.
Everything had to die, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, there was 2 Max Boyce albums in the top 50. Welsh comedian, Pete, just in case you're not a fan.
Yeah. That is wild.
It is, isn't it? If you compare to earlier this year when Meat Loaf died, see how many of these mean anything to any of you chaps. Are you ready? Number 1 was Night Call by Years and Years.
Oh.
Yard Act were number 2.
No.
Meat Loaf 3. Ed Sheeran, we've all heard of him, haven't we? Yeah. Hits Out of Hell, Stephen, was 5. Adele, The Weeknd.
Oh yeah, I know who they are.
I'm not. got a song called Blinding Lights, haven't they? I don't know. Aurora, Sherlock's, Olivia Rodrigo. I mean, who are these people?
I know who some of these people are. Yes.
Oh, actually, you are. That's because you're a young person. D Block Europe. Actually, no, I know who they are because all the kids I teach know who they are.
Okay.
Kiefer Sutherland. Are we in fact taking the piss at this point? Just,
it's not any more ridiculous than Max Boyce.
It really isn't. Elton John, yeah, I've heard of him. Hey, Doja Cat, Gunner. Yeah, modern life just weirds me out. I just don't get it. I just no, don't really don't get much of it. So it did spend roughly about 500 weeks on the UK chart, which is probably most of the time between 1978 and now, isn't it? You know, it's got that kind of Dark Side of the Moon kind of longevity going on there, but never got beyond 9, because I think when it charted early this year to get to number 3, it must have actually sold about 15 copies, mustn't it? The way these things go now.
That's double figures these days, yes.
So yeah, I just wanted you to know that I came home today and I did the context.
Okay, well, I've done context too, so I will follow that up with. It was released in the US on October the 21st, 1977. It has sold over 43 million copies worldwide.
Wow.
That's insane. 14 times platinum in the US. As Simon mentioned, it spent over 500 weeks on the UK album charts. And I believe it's the best-selling album ever in Australia. I mean, who would have known, other than Australians? And I'm not sure that they know either. But oddly, with all those ginormous numbers, it's reached number 9 in the UK and number 14 in the US Billboard charts. You would imagine an album with those numbers was sat at number 1 for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Longevity, yeah, not peak performance, but just constant. It was just constant.
And then, as Simon alluded to, those high rankings were eclipsed this year because people do like to buy product when their heroes die. I've never understood that, but okay. It got to number 3 in the UK and number 13 in the US. So for my charts, I've gone back to when it actually peaked in the US and got to number 14. And that was on September the 16th of its year of release. So it was the year after it was released. It was 11 months after it was released. It was already on the charts for 47 weeks before it got to number 14. Which is that's crazy. That is what you call, that's a real slow burner. So during 78, so many years were covered here because it took so long for this album to do its thing. The charts were dominated really by Saturday Night Fever in Greece. When I looked at the charts in the build up to this week, one of those two was at number 1 for months and months and months prior to this. However, on September the 16th, we have a much more sane chart in the US than what Simon has just read out for the UK. We've got Don't Look Back by Boston at number 1. We've got Some Girls by the Rolling Stones at number 2. We have got Double Vision by Foreigner at number 3. Then you've got the Grease soundtrack. Then you've got the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the soundtrack album, not the Beatles one. That is in the chart, but it's much lower down. You've got the Commodores with Natural High. You've got the Brothers Johnson with Blam. You've got the Who with Who Are You? You've got A Taste of Honey with A Taste of Honey.
All kind of like R&B funk bands that are the same thing with Brothers Johnson, yeah.
You've got Billy Joel with A Stranger at number 10. And then with Bat Out of Hell being at 14, I've gone through there. So Pablo Cruz, Whirls Away at 11. Kenny Loggins with Night Watch at number 12. Rick James at 13 with Come and Get It. And the other notable albums in the top 20, Bruce Springsteen with Darkness on the Edge of Town, and it would appear that once you got into town, you became Bob Seger and became a stranger in town. So the boss was at 17 and Bob was at 18. And then you had Joe Walsh at 20 with But Seriously Folks. And then interestingly, in a completely unrelated thing to this, there's been a top 100 albums poll shared on Twitter a lot lately. I have come across it in my feed numerous times, and it was published in Kerrang magazine in October 1981. And this was the top 100 heavy metal albums of all time as voted for, okay? And Bat Out of Hell ranks at number 17. Okay, now with hindsight, it wouldn't be in 100 top heavy metal albums, but to be fair, Kerrang was the Bible of heavy metal in 1981, and its readers created this poll, and it was at number 17. So that's almost a bigger accolade than all of those numbers before, because that shows how cross-genre it worked, that it was being taken so seriously alongside AC/DC and Judas Priest and Whitesnake and anyone else that you want to mention that was in that top 100. Fascinating stuff. So there you go.
It's crazy. And on top of all that, here on the Billboard hits charts, you took the words right out of my mouth. Paradise by the Dashboard Light and 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad were all really big hits here on AM and FM radio. All right, Simon, kick us off. 7, 6.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to combine 7 and 6. My 7's for Crying Out Loud, and my 6 is Heaven Can Wait. Do you notice anything about those two songs, kids? That's right. They're the slightly less batshit crazy songs that are available for selection. The great things about both those songs are his voice. Stephen?
Yes.
I am going to pull faces when you make your wrong choices, but you know, don't think I didn't notice that. I nearly said I love Meat Loaf's voice, but not towards the end. No. No. There's just this to me is an absolute classic album. I can see it's a bit. I can see why it's more mighty, because it is just batshit crazy in the best possible sense of the word. And these are the two most straight, big ballady kind of songs. Heaven Can Wait is just lovely. It's really nice. It's not as stripped back as you might think, because of course it isn't. Because the production on this record is immense, big, huge. I'm gonna have. You know, somebody told me about Todd Rundgren once. Oh, it was you. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so the piano break in Heaven Can Wait is just so swoony. See what I did? I just put a Y on the word swoon. Yes, indeed. I think it worked for me. All Revved Up and No Place to Go is my 5. It's just insane. It's insane, especially the end bit. Just really, really, really crazy. I've got less about these three than because all the stuff I really want to say about this album is encapsulated in what I'm now calling my top 5. And these are ballads of two of the most normal songs on the album, and All Revved Up and No Place to Go is great, but I think the top 4 songs are amongst my favorite things of all time.
Okay,
it's a great way to start here. Yeah,
it would appear that in some ways I'm out on a limb again this week. Okay, I'm beginning to smell a bit of a conspiracy theory here, but anyway. Moving along, okay. Now, I am glad that you're sitting down, Simon. Or I presume you're sitting down. I mean, I don't know that for a fact.
I'm just a very short person.
Yeah, well, I mean, your camera could be way up here, might be a very tall. I don't know. Anyway, so my number 7 is For Crying Out Loud. Okay. I really don't like the vocals on this. I mean, they're shrieky, and they genuinely just made me go. This was one of the songs that I did not know, right? And the word that I wrote down to describe this was, boring. It's boring and it's too long, okay? I mean, the songs on this album are what's commonly known as too long, right? They go on and they go on and they go on. And in the unedited version of this show, I will do that for the next 46 minutes because they really do go on some. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed that before. They never seem to stop. Please make it stop. 46 minutes and 7 songs, and there's not a prog rock cape in sight. Okay, I mean that breaks all sort of convention here. I mean, right? I mean, it was a struggle to stay awake during this song. Its overwrought strings are just warbled and just nonsense, and it's a non-entity of nothingness. I really don't like that song at all. Okay, I'm continuing to make myself very popular. Okay, number 6. Okay,
I think
so
last time when we did this, people were with you.
some.
Yeah, some we did.
Yeah. So my number 6 is Heaven Can Wait. Okay, there you are. See, okay. I really dislike the slow songs on this album. They are dull, they are lifeless, and they are forgettable. And Heaven Can Wait sums up those three things absolutely perfectly. It's so unexciting that I would just happily never hear it ever again. And if I ever did, I probably wouldn't notice. That's how unexciting this song is. It does nothing for me at all. And then my number 5, Simon, is, well, it's all revved up with No Place to Go. Okay.
Do we need to be like countdown at this point? And
I think we are beginning
my notes.
Well, I can't because it's on my screen.
That's my
here.
working out.
Okay. Right. And this is pretty much smolchy rubbish for me. It's bad rock and roll mixed with lumping theatrical themes and so sax playing. Admittedly, right, when the tempo picks up in the last sort of 30 seconds, I mean, things just drastically improve. But otherwise, no thank you. That's it. That's my first 3.
I barely recovered from the captain in me, and here we go again.
As I said, as we discovered on the Meat Loaf show that we did, Meat Loaf or Fried Chicken, many moons ago.
Yeah,
I'm not a Meat Loaf fan. I do appreciate a lot of what he's done, and there are songs that I really like in his catalogue. Most of them don't fall on this album.
Something that our colleague Martin Popoff says a lot that some people agree with and some don't. That he says, sometimes music, your favorite music, you had to be there, right? And I genuinely kind of agree with that. I bought this album when it came out, so I have had this album with me for, I'm not good at math, however many years that's been. It's been a long time. I was 12 when this came out, so I'm 56 now. So wow, 44 years, right? So to me, there's no bad songs on this album, and I know it inside and out really well. But I genuinely do feel that some songs rise above the others. Obviously, on every album, that's usually the case. So I am kind of being very similar to you guys here. My number 7 is a little bit different here. My number 7 is Heaven Can Wait. Good song, heartfelt. It's really mellow, right? It's kind of a little mellow for me, but I still like it. I love his vocals on it. Number 6 is For Crying Out Loud. That used to be my least favorite song on this album, but over more recent years, I kind of like the kind of pompousness of it, and just like it's like Meat Loaf on songs on this album. It's like he wishes he was on Broadway stage every night, just belting out these songs in front of an adoring crowd and doing it night after night after night. Because I think at his core, that's what he really always wanted to do. He's like stage performer. But I like For Crying Out Loud. My number 5, I'm going to differ from you guys here. And I love this song. It pained me to put it this long. But I want you, I want you, I need you, I need you. But there ain't no way I'm ever going to love you. Now, don't be sad.
Because 2 out of 3.
I was doing, sorry, I was harmonizing.
Is it okay? It's all right. It's okay.
Yes. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I really like 2 out of 3 ain't bad a lot. But I just kind of like 4 a little bit better. But at 2 out of 3 ain't bad is a really good ballad. And again, it pains me to put it at number 5, but that's my number 5. Back to Simon.
Okay, my 4 is You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth. Spoken intro is fairly crazy. This is the point where we can talk about the Todd Rundgren's pop wall of sound.
Oh yeah.
He's heard Full Spectrum, and he thinks that Phil's been reining it in a bit.
That whole intro, Simon, man, is completely wall of sound, right? I mean,
yeah, he thinks that Phil just didn't make the effort, to fill up everything, and Todd just goes for it. He really does. But the real thing about You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth, and all the top 4 for me, is that yes, Meat Loaf would probably rather be on Broadway. But what he does is he inhabits the songs and he finds that kind of like emotional truth in everything. And he sings it like he really, really means it. You know, he finds that kind of soul in every song. And you know, in this one you think, oh, oh just as you would say, oh, just oh meat. Oh,
We feel like that too, Simon.
fella. Oh,
Oh, me.
yeah. Anyway, there you go. 3 and 2 just keep moving around, and I eventually plumped. You know, I don't know if you can see. I was 3 in, and I was 2 in, and I was really because I write things down rather than use newfangled shit. I eventually plumped on Paradise by the Dashboard Light as being number 3. It's like a 3-part mini opera, and again, it's just mental. It really, really is. It's insanely ambitious. And you know what? If whilst we don't agree that at the time everybody was really punking it up, it is not like anything else.
No.
You know, you know, okay, so it's a little bit like Rocky Horror Picture Show or something like which Meat Loaf was in.
Yes, he was.
With you know, as you know, with my mate, what's he called? Bald-headed guy, Richard Thingy. Considering my mate. Yeah, Richard O'Brien. There you go.
That's the one.
Yeah, you know, it's got baseball dialogue. It's got the doo-wop backing vocals. It's just insane. It's just really stupidly over the top, and it makes me do this. Ready? Yeah, it makes me. It turns me into a horse. Yes, it does. Yeah, it's just absolutely. It just makes me so happy. And you know, I've said before, and I'll probably say it again. You know, that's why I select. Yes, Steve.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It made you into a horse. It made Meat Loaf a little horse. Anyway.
Yeah, there it goes. Into the garden. Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm happy now. Thank you.
You are. Bless. Yeah, it's just fantastic. It's absolutely great. And like I don't know about you, Stephen, but like practically everybody else in the UK, I first saw this on the Old Grey Whistle Test. Was it Carla DeVito doing the singing at that point? Bouncy as fuck. I think we can all agree. But you know, just like the whole performance, and you know, and when Meat Loaf slobbers all over and stuff, it just really, yeah, just really goes for it. There's no holding back, and there's no holding back on this album.
No, there's not.
No, it's like you can see why they shopped it around to a number of record labels. And they went, "What the fuck? No, seriously." You know, it came out on, you know, Cleveland International. Let's just count all the other hits that record company had.
Meanwhile, Epic gave it a shot, and Epic was like, "Yes, we scored big, right? Holy crap!" Yeah.
Can you make that again, lads? Oh,
and again,
not for a while. But yeah, anyway, Paradise by the Dashboard Light is awesome. My number 2 is 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Jim Steinman thought Elvis did a song, didn't he? I want you, I need you, I love you. Well, I'm gonna dick around with those words. I want you, I need you, but there ain't no way I'm ever gonna love you. There is, you know, I don't, you know, that's a universal truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. People, horrible, nasty people have said that to me. Yeah, or a variant upon that. It's an absolute universal truth. That happens to people. You know, when people let you down in the shittiest kind of way. You know, it's been 35 years, I've let it go. I'm just saying. Yeah. But but the play on the, you know, he did write it in kind of in response to the Elvis song. It's kind of funny, but also deeply, deeply sad. Yeah. I want you, I need you, but there's just no way ever gonna love you.
Sorry, it's not gonna happen.
Jog on. Yeah. Yep. Off you go. Yeah. However, and I love this song, but the version on the Meat Loaf live album, sometimes live from Wembley, with Bob Kulick playing the 7-hour guitar solo, is amongst the greatest things you will ever hear. Just saying.
That's great.
I think he's played a Flying V, and I remember seeing him on in the mid-80s and think, oh my God, this is so good. And then the actual that band recorded an album, which 7 people wrote, but it's so good. And then Meat Loaf goes, hey, Bobby Kulick. And I like that bit as well. But yeah, I love that song. I love it very, very much.
Cool.
Okay.
Right.
So we veer slightly differently. I'll continue while you compose yourself, Simon.
Thank you, Steven.
Okay. Yeah.
Have a drink.
Out of somebody else's hand. And so my number 4 is 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. Okay, and I think that the cleverest thing about this album are the mental hooks. It's exactly what you've said, Simon, and the little play on words. For me personally, over the music itself. I mean, there are on this album at certain points, not often enough for me. There's some great guitar work. There's not enough of it from my personal taste. Meat's vocals are good, sometimes are great, and very occasionally they're very ordinary. But it's the titles, it's things like 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. You took the words right out of my mouth. It must have been while I was kissing you. People who probably have heard this album once know these things. It has completely transcended the Bat Out of Hell album. It's completely moved. There's so many things that Meat Loaf did musically with song titles and various things that have gone beyond that. And that's really clever, and it's kept the album alive in a wider sense. It's easy to see why this permeates into society and sold so many copies. Because I don't think that there'll be people who say things like this that don't even connect it with Meat Loaf. And that's where most people kind of know it from. But anyway, that's my number 4. My number 3 is, you took the words right out of my mouth, Hot Summer Night. Okay, I've never particularly loved this song, right? It doesn't really do a ginormous amount for me. And I find the intro absolutely toe-curling. It's like, I believe that it's Jim Steinman that's kind of asking Stroke.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Stop it. There's no need for that. Stop it. Okay. I mean, they're utterly stupid questions. I mean, even he starts to get irritated. Do you know? She asks him, and will he starve without me? And even Jim goes, yes, get on with it. That's what he's saying at that point. Well, I mean, he wrote this shit, and he's still kind of going, I've had enough of this now. Can we just do the song? Anyway, there is some nice guitar work in this, and I presume that there's some glockenspiel or something dinging in the background that kind of reminds me of Bruce Springsteen, and therefore I kind of go, yeah, okay, I'm on board, because I quite like that kind of thing. It's one of the best vocals on the album, because there are vocals on this album that I'm really not excited by. It's more controlled and less histrionic than some of the stuff that I'm not so keen on. And it's interesting because this album obviously means much more to you two gentlemen than it does to me. I find that Meat doesn't sell an awful lot of this stuff. I think that it is show tunes done in a show tune way. And if I want to go to the theatre and see a show tune, I'll go to the theatre and see a show tune. I would not buy the soundtrack to the album on the way home. So there you go. I find that, I mean, the arrangements are totally over the top, and it just leaves me a little bit cold. It doesn't, we're at number 3 here, and I'm still kind of going. But anyway, so, right, number 2 for me, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I will admit that the live performance that you can see on TV and therefore on YouTube, on the Old Grave Whistle Test, that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. It's phenomenal, it's brilliant, it's fantastic. Okay, but to me, it would fit on the Grease soundtrack. It's very of this era. If you want overblown doo-wop, if that's your thing, then we're right here. And it's not my thing. It does nothing for me at all in that sense. I quite like the mid-song baseball commentary, because I'm sure that's what it's about. And the kind of
Rizzuto, voice of the Yankees back in the 70s.
Yeah, and the kind of funky junk that's going on in the background. Yeah, okay, I can dig that. I don't need to hear it every time that the song's on, though. And Ellen Foley's co-lead vocals on this are brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. She's amazing on this. I don't dislike this song. I don't necessarily have to play it on a regular basis. She's amazing on it though. Really, really good. And her vocals on this song are a highlight of this whole album for me. And it's fascinating that some of the ladies that Meat has sung with over the years are not much, much, much better known than they are. Because man, oh man, did he surround himself with some vocal talent. Really tremendous singers, and they all played the parts brilliantly well. Really good. So that's my number 2.
My number 4 is Paradise by the Dashboard Light. You guys got to understand, here in the States, man, this song is absolutely legendary and played to death on FM classic rock radio then and now. It was never one of my favorite songs on the album, but I think it's really well done for such a long song. It's really well done. But I think part of the reason why it sits like kind of in the middle of the pack for me is like there's a burnout factor for me. So like, if we had done this 30 years ago, I might have ranked it a little higher. At this point, I'm like, I realize and appreciate the greatness of the song, but it's a middle of the pack song for me on this album today anyway. Number 3 is You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth. I agree completely, Steven. The beginning is ridiculous, but man, what a great hook on this song. I love the over the top production of this. It totally sounds big and bold and Phil Spector-ish, like Simon said. And man, the chorus is just so good. So this could even rank higher. I actually almost had this in my number 2. So yeah, I love You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth. My number 2 is actually All Revved Up and No Place to Go. I just love the way the song just builds and builds and builds. Yeah, it's kind of generic in spots until it really kicks in. But man, the last like minute and a half of the song to me is pure gold. And Meat Loaf is just singing up a storm. I mean, this guy could wail when he wanted to. The drumming on the song is so good. So to me, this is a total slow build, kick-ass ending. And it just like, you kind of do that, right? So All Revved Up and No Place to Go is my number 2. Gee, I think we all have the same number 1. Wow, who would have thought that?
I'm trying to work it out what it could possibly be. Yeah,
they should have named my number
1 is Bat Out of Hell. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what yours is, but mine's Bat Out of Hell. It's no secret that really this is like Steinman's response to Springsteen stuff. And the imagery and everything about this song is just fantastic. And if you look at the people that played on it, you've got Roy Bittan, Max Weinberg from the E Street Band. You've got Rory Dodd, who sang the vocal bits for Total Eclipse of the Heart. Ellen Foley, Todd Rundgren, but on motorcycle guitars. I mean, come on. Guitars that sound like motorcycles. How cool is that?
And Todd Rundgren is kicking ass on this song. I mean, big
absolutely. Yeah. You've got Kasim Sultan. He can play bass. He can do that shit. That's in his wheelhouse, isn't it, to do that stuff? I feel like it is. You've got Meat on the top of it. You've got an absolute peak masterpiece of building a song. Building and building and building, and the bit, when it builds up to going, flying away, hey, like a bat out of hell. Oh yeah. Now there came a point where Meat dragged it out too long live. Like he dragged all the songs out too long while they had a little breather and stuff, while the band funked around and stuff. But for a long period, certainly on the album, and for a long period live, and I saw him many times over a number of decades. Just that bit where it's building up, and then it goes for it at the end. It's just life-affirming genius. That's the phrase that pays. And I think for me, much of the album is, it's not like anything else. It's just. It is what it is, and much as I've waxed lyrical about it. I haven't actually listened to it for ages until we decided we were doing it. I didn't listen to it when he died, so I've already got it. But going back to it has been such happy joyness. It really has. I was walking down the road this afternoon, getting all revved up with no place to go, shutting down the street. Didn't realise that there was a guy in the telephone exchange thing looking at me like I was absolutely batshit crazy. And after I walked past, I carried on. You know what I mean? It is Steven. You know, it's a great record. I'm afraid we're going to have to diverge again. You know,
we are diverging. There's no two ways.
We really are. You know, it's that. It's just. It's almost beyond parody. It's that mental because it's such. I'm going to make a word up. Parodial itself. It's just. I know it's the best I could come up with.
You know what it is, Simon? And Stephen will remember this. So many months ago on In the Prog Seat, we were talking about Close to the Edge, and Ken Golden, our colleague over there, said that is one of those albums that I've heard and loved it for so many years and decades that if I never ever actually listened to it again, I'd be okay with it because I know it so well. Every little nook and cranny and melody and note of that album in this brain that I can play it in my head and hear it and love it. And I don't actually have to physically play it. I think I am there with this album. And I didn't even listen to it leading up to this episode because I know this album so well. And I'm just sitting there, you know, typing and hearing the songs in my head. And I'm like, yeah, that's how that goes. Yeah, that's that guitar riff. Yeah, that's that vocal passage. That's that chorus. And it's like, but now I want to go listen to this again. Even though I didn't like leading up to this. Because I haven't, I mean, this is not something I pull out that often anymore because I've listened to it so many times. I know it so well and I love it so much. But I think to listen to it again will give me the warm and fuzzies, right? Because those warm and fuzzies will always be there when it comes to this record, whether we're playing it up here or whether we're actually physically putting in something and listening to it. Anyway, Stephen, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. It's you'll excuse me being slightly distracted. I was checking the best before date on my beer because as I've gotten to the bottom of this glass, there is quite a lot of sediment.
Oh.
so much so that I believe there is an archaeological dig at the side of the river of my beer. I will persevere though.
Do you remember that root beer that I got like months ago? I had the same problem with that. There was all these weird things floating at the bottom. I'm like, I think this is severely out of date. Yeah, that's not looking good.
Yeah, this we shall leave. We shall not be emptying our glasses.
No, that's going down the drain. No, that's not good.
So, for my last ever appearance on this show, yeah, I mean, I don't have that journey with this album, and obviously anyone that's watched us for the last few months or maybe beyond that will know that I don't have this connection with Meat Loaf, and therefore I don't really have that connection with this album. I find this. I mean, to go back 2 weeks, I found the Doobie Brothers interesting but hard work because I didn't know it. I do know half of this album, and when I go back and listen to it now, I kind of know most of this album because it has been so ubiquitous for so long now that there's not really any of it that it can be a mystery anymore. I really struggle with this. I find, and obviously I'm swimming against the tide of 43 million sales here, so I appreciate that I'm the one that's definitely wrong on this occasion, as normal. I just find the whole thing just to be totally overplayed, totally overwrought, and I find very little to get excited about. I think the cast list, as Simon alluded to, on this album, you've got Utopia. You know, you've got Todd Rundgren, Kazim Sultan, you've got Roger Powell, you've got John Willie Wilco. It's like, wow, already I should be here.
And Utopia and the E Street Band, basically, yeah, right?
Right. You've got a section of the E Street Band, who are amazing. I love Bruce Springsteen. You've got Jim Steinman, hugely talented guy. You've got Edgar Winter turning up to play sax on occasion. I mean, the cast list is off the charts here, off the charts. And yeah, I find I mean, as I did for the Doobie Brothers, for my own kind of notes, because I didn't know this album as well as you two guys did, I scored these songs out of 10 to get this far. And Bat Out of Hell, which is also my number one, got 7 out of 10. It's a 7 out of 10 song for me. It's a, if you haven't heard it, yeah, go listen to it. But I'm not going to tell you it's the best thing in the world. That's what a 7 out of 10 is for me when I'm scoring albums on the website. So what I've written is I've got to admit, yeah, this isn't bad. The guitars are really good in spots, really good in spots. And especially when there's a bit of harmony guitars on the go, really, really good. The arrangements are really clever on this song, really clever. Whether I like it or whether I don't, it's there to be admired. It is so well constructed. And Meat's vocals are off the charts. They are fantastic. Really, really good. And I can immediately see why people love this, because there's so much to love. And then, I mean, it's 10 minutes long, and I just don't need it to be 10 minutes long. I don't have enough here to hang my hat on to say I'm in for the 10 minutes. Some of the sections are brilliant, and some of them are not. And some of the guitar parts are amazing, and I hanker for more of that. I don't need the theatrics. I like going to the theatre, I like seeing a musical and all that kind of stuff, but that's a completely different ballpark to me. That's a different me that goes to that than sits at home and listens to albums. And I tend to find that if I enjoy a show a lot and then hear the music out of that context, I kind of go, yeah. And that's exactly how Bat Out of Hell feels to me. This is a soundtrack album without a film. Is how I've always felt. And that in many ways is a compliment, because it does tell a story and it does have all of those kind of window dressing and scenery and set, and you can't help but feel that you're in an album. There's no choice. You're in this album from start to finish. You listen to it from start to finish. It creates a completely different world. You're somewhere else entirely. It's not just a collection of songs. This is a whole experience that's been crafted from start to finish, and the talent and skill that's gone in to make that is phenomenal. Doesn't particularly take me on its journey. It doesn't mean to say that I can't admire the craft that's gone into it. And I can also understand why it was that they were so desperate, or record companies were, or Mr. Steinman himself was so desperate to recapture it and never quite could. Because it's a moment in time that's happened here. And you can't go back and recreate that, much though they tried over and over and over. And it was interesting for me when we did the Meat Loaf show, because I'm not a massive fan. I can't tell you all about all of these albums and various things, but I got to know them in a way that I hadn't before, so that we could have a chat about them. And the longer he goes, and there are some good albums along the way, there's some utter dross, by the way, but there are some good albums along the way. But so much of it is a parody of this, and that it's quite frightening in actual fact. And
people bought into that. People bought into that.
Absolutely. And I almost find this to be a parody of itself, even at the time, because it's so, if you're not encapsulated by its world, it's so disingenuous. It's so constructed. This doesn't feel like a set of songs that came from somebody's heart. This isn't songs that really meant something to the guy that was singing them. And I'm not suggesting they don't or they didn't, but it doesn't touch me in that way. It feels like a set of lyrics that were given to a guy to sing, and sing brilliantly. But it's not got that connection where you hear certain singers that will say, well, I can't sing this stuff that the old guy wrote because, well, I don't connect to those songs. None of it feels like that to me. It feels like really, really, really good musicians and really good singers singing stuff that was given to them to say, do your best work. And that's how I kind of feel about the album. And it leaves me standing on the outside looking in going, wow, if I was in there, that would be brilliant. But I'm not. I'm on the outside kind of going, well, they're all having fun. And I'm not really. That's me with this album. But anyway, my number one is Bat Out of Hell, and by a distance, by some distance for me.
You had to be there, right? I guess. Yeah, I sometimes, think of myself like, what if I didn't grow up when albums like this or Back in Black or, whatever got released, these mega albums, and and I experienced them when they were new, how would I feel about them? I don't know. There's like huge albums from the 70s that were released before I was, old enough to buy records that I don't appreciate as much as other people do, who experienced it when they were new. And so I get it. I get it. I can't hold it against you for not enjoying this as much as I do or as Simon does, because it's to me, it's a product of its time. And it's like, if you grew up with this, experienced it with its new, it's a little bit different than coming to it many years later, I think. So yeah, I mean, Bad Out of Hell is my number one song too. I like it because to me, it's the most rocking song on the album. I don't mind the length. I think it goes by pretty quickly. I think Todd Rundgren kicks complete ass on this song. He's such an underrated guitar player. And I love Meat's vocals on it. I just think it's a terrific, terrific song. And what a way to start off this album. So to me, that was the easiest one to put at number one. It's always been my favorite on this album. So yeah, Bad Out of Hell.
It's interesting, Peter, because to go back to what we touched on last week, you said the D word last week. This album is not dated, but it's not dated because we've heard parts of this over and over and over. It's never been away. It's always been there. Bat Out of Hell, 283 Ain't Bad, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I don't love this album. I don't own this album. I can give you the song titles. I know these songs because whether I wanted to, whether I didn't, you couldn't escape them. They're not that bad. I'm not trying to escape them. I don't hate this. I really don't hate it, but I don't love it. But without that journey, I think that this would sound remarkably of its time. Remarkably.
Right.
You couldn't make an album like this now because you just couldn't.
Did you feed the girls?
And it's not dated because we've all had that journey with it. And that's all. I think this is remarkably dated. But that's because I don't have the journey.
Right. So there you have it, everybody. Ranking the songs on classic albums. Meat Loaf, Bad Out of Hell. Rank them as you like them in the comments below. 7 tracks. See what you can come up with. So thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned. What do we got coming up next week? Going to go back to favorite and least favorite albums once again for Lynyrd Skynyrd. Steven's got a little listening to do, I think. A lot of listening to do.
Yeah, but we would appear to be broadening my horizons. That's the polite way of putting it. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you now, there are some Skynyrd that I love, absolutely love, and people are probably not going to agree with me. I don't care.
All right. All right. It'll be interesting. So stay tuned, everybody, for that. Next Saturday, visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. All together. All the damn time. For Simon Bray and Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of the weekend, everybody. Stay tuned for ranking the albums tomorrow, and we'll kick off the work week with the Hudson Valley Squares on Monday. So till then, take care, everybody. Yeah, Steven, stay away from that skunk funk at the bottom of that. Yeah, no good. Take care, everybody.